I was 17 years old when I decided to share this story. But when it actually happened, I was just 15. It was a bright and sunny day when my family and I planned a visit to my aunt's house. I was thrilled because I always loved going there and spending time with my cousin. When we arrived, my cousin and I decided to have a sleepover. So, we went to a nearby store to grab some snacks. On our way back, a man called out to us. When we turned around, we saw a decent-looking man holding a pack of chips that we had accidentally dropped. I walked up to him and took the chips, and he gave me a friendly smile. I didn't think much of it then. By the time we returned home, it was already dark. We were picking a movie to watch. My aunt's house always felt cozy, as she kept the main entrance open for fresh air to flow in. The entrance had 2 doors, a sturdy iron gate with bars that allowed air to pass through, and a wooden door a few meters behind it. For security, my aunt always kept the wooden door open, but ensured the iron door was locked. As we finally settled in for the movie, we suddenly heard a soft thud coming from the corridor between the doors. A strange feeling crept over me. I quickly asked my cousin if she had locked the iron door. She hesitated, saying she wasn't sure. So, she got up to check. A minute passed, and I didn't hear anything from her. Concerned, I got up to check. And what I saw made my blood freeze. A man had broken into the house, and my cousin was lying unconscious on the floor. The intruder was wearing a mask. As soon as he saw me, he started chasing me. I panicked and ran, shouting to alert everyone in the house. He was fast, but somehow, I managed to escape into the kitchen and lock the door behind me. My mom and aunt were already there. We were terrified. And to make things worse, our mobile phones were in another room. The man kept banging on the door. But when it didn't budge, we heard his footsteps fading away. I couldn't leave my cousin alone. So I gathered my courage, grabbed a plate from the kitchen, opened the door, and ran towards him. Just as he turned around, I smashed the plate onto his head. Blood started dripping down his face. Without wasting time, I grabbed my phone, dialed 911, and rushed to my cousin. I sprinkled some water on her face, and thankfully, she woke up. She was shaken but unharmed. The police arrived quickly and arrested the man. When they removed his mask, I was in shock. It was the same man who had returned our chips earlier that evening. The police later confirmed that he had been following us all along. He was a kidnapper who abducted young girls and sold them for money. I was just relieved that nothing worse happened to us. That night, I learned an important lesson. Never trust a stranger just because they seem nice. Now, let me tell you another mysterious event that happened about 25 years ago. At the time, I was traveling alone in my car. You might wonder why I was alone. But back then, I didn't have anyone to travel with. My destination was a small town in the southern part of my country, and it was quite far from home. I left in the morning and arrived in the evening. The town was tiny and completely dark when I reached. There wasn't a single soul in sight. As I drove slowly, searching for a motel, I noticed a small bridge ahead. Right next to the bridge, a man was sitting on a chair. In the dim light, he looked eerie. I was startled, but rolled down my window and asked if something was wrong. The man stepped closer, looked me up and down, and said in a serious tone, "Don't cross this bridge." I frowned and asked, "Why?" Slightly annoyed, thinking he might just be some eccentric old man. His voice was low as he replied, "Only designated people can cross this bridge." I was exhausted from the long drive and snapped, "Who decides that?" The man mumbled something, but I couldn't hear it clearly. I was conflicted. If I avoided the bridge, I'd have to take a longer route, adding an extra 20 minutes to my journey. I was too tired for that, so I just said, "Musawabim, sorry, but I have to go." The man simply stared at me for a moment, then sat back down in his chair. I ignored him and drove onto the bridge. But as I reached the middle, I suddenly heard a loud thump, as if something massive had landed on my car. My vehicle shook violently. Shivering, I glanced at the top of my car through the window, but saw nothing. Too scared to step outside, I froze in place. In my rearview mirror, I saw the man still sitting there, watching me with that same unsettling expression. Then, from the corner of my eye, I noticed something slowly sliding down from the top of my car. It was a massive yellow hand. It tapped on my window. I screamed in horror. The hand kept sliding down, trying to open the car door. I quickly pressed the lock button, securing all doors just in time. My heart pounded as I stared at the enormous arm that nearly covered the entire window.